Good morning, everybody. Becca Switzer here. And yesterday I had a tough mental space day. I've been traveling like nonstop, what feels like since the first of the year. I've barely been home. I've missed my dog. I've just felt like I'm out of my routine. And I'm a very routine oriented person in my regular daily life. I get a lot of stuff done, whether it's cleaning around the house or doing my work, answering messages, creating content, making sure that everybody in my life gets birthday cards and birthday gifts and holiday gifts and things like that. And so when I'm starting to realize this about myself, when I get out of that routine, all of this stress starts to build inside of my chest. And I start to just get bogged down with what's kind of become over the last couple of years, this daily sense of anxiety. And I had shared a post a couple of weeks ago where I was getting really tired of waking up feeling the stress. And I'm like, what's it coming from? Like, what are the big things that aren't getting done that need to get done? And, I kind of ended up realizing that, well, I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself for achieving and being productive and doing all these things, when the reality is I have everything that I need in my life. My life is going amazing. My business is going amazing. My relationships are amazing. What's going on here? And so I kind of had a revelation there. You can read the previous post to get more info on that. But yesterday I had another one of those days where I actually got home from New York City on Sunday night, and that was 5 days ago. And I have the whole house to myself until Monday, so I had a whole week basically to relax. And I had been feeling so stressed from all the travel and everything that I've been doing. I was really looking forward to just totally letting myself off the hook and relaxing. I was gonna go get a massage and take bubble baths and do face masks and just hang out and Marie Kondo the shit out of my house, like things like that. And I got home and I wasn't allowing myself to do that. I was feeling this heavy chain just dragging me down. It's like, no, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. Worrying, feeling super stressed. And yesterday was Friday, and I'm like, I just need to let myself relax. I'm having a really hard time relaxing. And I sat down and I just started like crying. I was just crying, ugly crying, and I was journaling and I was trying to figure out, I started and I said, I'm home for 3 weeks. All this back and forth has been really exhausting. I'm trying to take 5 or 6 days off to completely relax, especially since I have the house to myself, but I continue to feel anxious, heavy, and bogged down. I've not really allowed myself to unplug. I've been cleaning. I've been doing sales calls that I said I wasn't going to do. I've been answering emails and messages, and I've been worrying about content that I need to get done and all this stuff. And I'm like, so what is going on? I'm having this feeling of it's the same thing. I'm not doing enough. I'm falling behind. If I'm not doing this, then something bad's going to happen. What? I don't know. And I don't know what I mean by that, but that's what my brain just keeps kind of telling me. And what I ended up writing down was, do I deserve to be able to do nothing? And that was when I really started ugly crying. I was like, oh, what do I mean by that? And I wrote, it feels like no matter how much I do, I still don't ever feel like I deserve to just do nothing. And it makes me feel so tired and exhausted and fatigued. And that's crazy. Like, I know that I've really accomplished an insane amount of things. Most people my age, I'm way beyond what most people do. And not that I'm comparing myself, but I don't know where my mind is getting this idea that like, I'm not doing enough, you're not doing enough, you're falling behind. And it's really taxing. And I'm trying to unlearn that. And after having a really great conversation with a couple of key people in my life last night about just relaxing and rewiring my brain, that's kind of how I've operated up until this point. And it's brought me a lot of success. It's created a lot of amazing life experiences and the things that I have around me. But now it's driving me crazy. And so after that, I had a really interesting dream last night that I interpreted this morning as very revealing. And I thought it was so interesting, and I wanted to share because I know a lot of us kind of deal with the same mental strife and the mouse wheel of our mind. And so last night, I dreamt that I went down into the basement of the house I grew up in. So I haven't been in that house in over like 12 years or 13 years or something like that. Longer than that, actually, probably closer to 15 years. And I went into the basement, and my brother had all of these birds like caged in small cages. And I went down there and I felt like heartbroken seeing these birds just caged up, and they weren't in like adequate cage, like small cages. And I just felt so bad for them. I told my brother, we can't, like, we have to release them. Like, this is no place for these beautiful birds to be trapped. And, you know, they need to be able to spread their wings and fly and go and live a beautiful life. And the next thing I know, I turn around and the birds have multiplied. Now there's like 10 times as many birds, and now they're even in smaller cages. They're in these weird wooden boxes with like plexiglass. And I used to have birds when I was younger, so I was like, they need to be able to climb and fly. You know, there's not enough room here. And all kinds. There were parakeets and pink parrots, and there was a magpie, which is one of my favorite birds, in a cage behind all these ones by itself. And this was a little bit of a larger cage, but it was this young magpie, and it was just thrashing around the cage, and its feathers were all just looking ragged because it was trying so desperately to get out of that cage. And I was feeling so guilty about those, and even though they weren't mine, I was feeling very guilty and heartbroken and worried about the well-being of these birds. And so I was telling my brother, like, we have to let them go. And he seemed to feel kind of ashamed about it too. And so we opened the door and let some of these birds out. And the first one that goes out is this magpie, and it just swoops around like crazy and then, you know, flies away. And we're letting some of them out. And oddly, at one point, we had glass doors in this basement. It was a walkout basement. And I look back and the door is closed, but some of these birds are coming back. And they're just like coming in, and I'm like, no, this is not where you belong. You need to go. And then at another point, one of the cages, there used to be a bird in there, but it turned into this weird cockroach that's like scuttling around, and there's wood chips in there. So you can't see it first. You just see the wood chips flying around. And then my brother pulls it out, and he's telling me in my dream, he's like, this is one of these very hardy cockroaches. Like they seem to live forever. You can't kill them. And he takes it out, and I'm like, ugh, you know, gross. He's like, you can't even really consider them bugs. Like, they're these really interesting creatures. And he takes it out, and it ends up turning into this weird, like, huge centipede-looking thing, and it's crawling all over. And then he traps it between his arm and his ribs in the dream. And anyway, as I wake up and I start reflecting on that dream, it was really interesting to me. It was revealing, and I'm mostly just going to read what I wrote down. But here are kind of my thoughts on that dream as I woke up. Birds are a universal symbol of freedom, right? We think about spreading your wings and flying away, and they can get away from anything, and that's kind of a universal symbol. My basement, I feel, really represented my old life, like my old thought patterns. That's where I grew up, and that's where my thought patterns came from, right? But the basement's also not what everybody sees. So your house is built on it, but people don't usually see what's down there, right? That's kind of what everything is operating off of. And the fact that these birds are trapped in the basement, and I feel guilty and want to free them, even though they aren't mine. They weren't even my birds. I didn't put them there. They were somebody else's birds, right? And I want to free them even though they're not mine. I believe may symbolize my freedom in thinking, and that I'm feeling as a burdensome stress. So the pattern of thinking that I'm having that's making me feel guilty, they're worries that are not even really mine inherently. So they're thoughts that I'm having, but they're not even really my thoughts and worries. I'm like adopting or taking on the responsibility of these thoughts and worries as if they're inherently mine, as if I have to do something about them. They are old thought patterns created over time in my past life up to this point, and while they were serving me at that point in my life and became the foundation upon which my mode of thinking is built today, I no longer live there. So this took place in an old house. It was the foundation of which the house was built on. They're thoughts that aren't even really mine. I just accumulated them over time, and I don't live there anymore. Those thoughts served me at that period in my life, but now I don't live there. And I don't have to be operating on that system. In fact, that system now might lend itself positively in some areas of my life, but on the whole, it's just causing me to feel crazy and stressed, and I don't need that anymore. And I wrote also, by focusing on those thoughts, the birds, so I believe that the birds again represented the thoughts that I was having. By focusing on those thoughts, the birds, I'm creating more of them. So remember in the dream, I looked and there were these trapped birds. I'm like, oh no. And then I'm focusing on them and all of a sudden there's 10 times more of them. And now I'm like, oh my God, right? Some of them look like birds, but end up being ugly, persistent insects, okay? And some of the thoughts are going to come back knocking on the door, but I need to continue to release them. So I just found this so fascinating. The dream was really good. I woke up feeling a lot more optimistic and capable and feeling like, oh, but I wrote at the top before I started all this, my new approach is, what do I feel inspired to do today? Not what do I have to do today to be perfect or to beat what I've done before or to, I don't even know what the thoughts really are, but I know that the human experience becomes this accumulation of thought patterns. And the point of life is not to struggle and survive. I believe the point of life is to be fun. It's to be fun and interesting. Life is supposed to be enjoyed, not stressed about. There's no real yardstick apart from, are you loving people and are you providing value around you? Are you doing no harm? That's something that I used to the mantra that I had about living life is there's two things, approach everything with love and do no harm. I think that's a Mike Dooley thing that I kind of adopted there. But the human experience, it's so interesting. And we really have to pay attention to the thought patterns that we're having. Do they serve us now or not? And thought patterns that used to serve us might not serve us anymore in the same way. Which also reminds me of, I'm actually reading, I just got done reading The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. And I loved that book. It's actually about cleaning your house. But as I was reading it, it really helped me to realize some of the things that we have in our lives, it might have served us at one point. We might have loved it at one point. That's why we acquired it. But today it might not be serving us, and it's time to let that go. And the same is true for thoughts. So I wanted to share that with you guys today. I know that as we go into adulthood, things just become harder, they seem, but I think that's because of the accumulation of these thought patterns. And so I wanted to share that with you guys. This is going to be a practice I'm going to try to make and to continue to, this is what I had written down about how I'm going to apply the dream to when I'm having those stressful moments and thoughts. I said, I'm going to imagine the churning, nagging, noisy chatter in my chest and mind as these restless caged birds. I can feel the disturbance they create with their squawking and rustling of their feathers as they're trapped in these cages, and I will picture myself opening those cages and watching them fly away. So kind of a meditation of sorts, like if I can picture when I'm feeling those as the birds that are just like, going crazy in these cages and making a lot of noise, I'm just going to picture myself releasing them, letting them go, and leaving that house. I hope that helps you guys. I know some of you, I'm sure, can relate. Maybe you've had something similar. I'd love to hear about it. But as always, keep it crunchy out there, you guys. You're doing great. Remember, life is supposed to be enjoyed. It's supposed to be fun and easy. So let's stay sane out there. I love you all. Catch you on the next one. Bye.